Hey everybody, warm welcome to this, I believe, the final session of the CFO Connect Summit for today. So I hope you had a great day so far, and I hope you will think that we save the things best for last. So I hope you can hang in there for this last session. I'm thrilled to be back here anyway. CFO Connect, as you know, is a global community of 12,000 finance leaders and powered by Splindesk. And this event, the CFO Connect Summit, it was created for finance leaders to connect and to exchange experiences and ideas in this difficult climate that we have today. What focus should we have, and how are the finance teams impacted in 2024? So in this particular session today, we're going to talk about my favorite topic, hypergrowth. What are the particular challenges for a CFO in a hypergrowth environment in today's macro climate? So we have great guests here, great experienced CFOs of hypergrowth companies that we will have a discussion around this in a minute. So before we jump into that, let me introduce myself. I'm Maria Hedengren, and I'm a venture partner with Eightroads. Eightroads is a venture capital investor who manages about $11 billion in both US, Europe, and Asia. And before I joined them, I was a C-level leader, CFO, and CEO of different hypergrowth tech companies. For example, I was the CFO of iSettle, which was a mobile payments company that was acquired by PayPal while I was there. But enough about me. I'm curious to know more about our panelists. So let's start with Jennifer Lowe. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for the intro. My name is Jennifer. I am the CFO of Tala, the world's largest fintech built exclusively for the global underbanked, or what we call the global majority. We have serviced or delivered access to credit and other critical financial services to 10 million customers in East Africa, Southeast Asia, and LATAM, and have originated over $5 billion in loans. At Tala, I oversee the company's finance, accounting, and capital markets teams.
Thank you. That sounds really interesting. And then we have Nelly Movine. Great to have you here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Maria. My name is Nelly. I work for Numida. I'm the CFO at Numida. Numida provides working capital loans to micro and small businesses. And similar to Jennifer's Tala, we also work a lot with unbanked businesses, and we like to say we provide wings to these businesses. And before joining Numida, I used to work for Jumia and work for Jumia pre and post IPO. My roles have largely been around building companies and driving and finding solutions to problems, especially financial ones. And currently in Numida, that's exactly what I'm doing, managing the financial strategy and building this to ensure we have a sustained growth over the next 100 years to reach 1 million businesses across Africa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. And finally, we have Peir.
Good morning and good afternoon to folks on the audience. Really inspiring, Nelly and Jennifer, to hear about what your companies are doing. As a quick introduction, I'm Jay, and my career has really centered around hypergrowth and scaling. I'm currently the Chief Strategy Officer and Interim CFO of Pigment. We're a next generation business planning platform. And last year we tripled our ARR. This year we've continued that hypergrowth and scaling. Prior to Pigment, I was part of the leadership team at Tableau Software for over 10 years, during the journey from about 50 million to 2 billion and being part of Salesforce. Before that, I was at a solar company called SunPower, from 4 million to 2 billion as well. So really the thread across hypergrowth. My career has traveled between finance and strategy, and I think that's indicative of how the role of finance has changed, especially over my career, to be more of a strategic focus. And the one, I guess, piece of advice or thing that I found that has helped my teams be more successful in being business partners is really embracing the mission and technology of what the company does. And I realize with analytics and business planning, it's easier for finance, but I think that applies across many different businesses. And at Tableau, we had a data warehouse where all of our transactional data and other data was used for analytics and to bring business insights to the company. We called it Alpo because we believed in eating our own dog food. At Pigment, we do something similar, which is to really not only have the analytics, but the ability to collaborate, to run scenarios and create forecasts to ultimately drive better business decisions, change, and action. And because we're a French company, we have a slightly different phrase, which is we drink our own champagne, which I frankly like a little bit better.
Great, thank you, Jay. So we will talk more in a minute, but before we do that, I would like to encourage your active participation. Of course, this will, we're here for you. This is a very interesting panel. I hope that you will take the opportunity to ask them a lot of questions. So there will be a Q&A session at the end of this. So please post your questions in the Q&A field here. And if the question is for a particular panelist, please put their name there too, and we will hopefully be able to address all of you or as many questions as we can towards the end. So let's get into the conversation for today. I mean, we're in a very turbulent world right now, of course, and wheels are just spinning faster. So navigating change when the whole sort of funding and macro climate is evolving and moving maybe more to more cash flow positive or different type of more rapid path to more profitability, but we still need to maintain that growth. It can be challenges. So I wanted to ask you, Nelly, how can CFOs shift in this situation from maybe sometimes we're a bit chasing, trying to sort of catch up with operations that have all of these great growth ideas. So how can we really become a strategic partner and side with them in this? Nelly, what do you think?
So this is a very interesting question because I've gone through this myself from the moment where I was largely focused on, when are we going to pay businesses and when are we reporting and when do we have to pay the taxes, etc. To be able to change from being an operational CFO to a strategic partner, you have to first of all know what kind of CFO you are. And this comes in two forms. Like you have to think of where your mindset is today and what the goals you typically have in your role are. So an operational CFO would most primarily be focused on tactical approaches, looking at the financial approach, financial operations and maintaining stability. Their goals will range from looking at how are we managing our costs and revenues and looking at, on a day-to-day possibility and operations, how are we tracking on this? A strategic CFO, on the other hand, will have a big picture thinking and big picture mindset and be forward-looking with a goal of looking at the financial strategy and how this supports the business goals. So then knowing what side you are and thinking you're an operational CFO, so how then do you start changing yourself slowly to this? As I was thinking about my own journey, I came up with this mnemonic called Bridge that really helped me to shift my mindset. So the B stands for building relationships with internal and external stakeholders. Being part of the conversations when people are thinking of new projects, be part of that and help them see how this impacts impacts the business financially and how you can all move towards growth and profitability. With external stakeholders, as a strategic CFO, you want to move more towards, as an operational CFO, you want to move more towards being the face of the financial strategy and also being part of the fundraising efforts if this applies to your business. And the R stands for risk management enhancement. So most of the time you find as an operational CFO, you're firefighting a lot. You want to move more towards a proactive approach. So think about the risks your business face and start putting in processes and policies to mitigate these risks and also be prepared for that. I stands for insights from data-driven decisions. Start building dashboards, investing in automation slowly as you can. I remember in the beginning, we couldn't afford investing in automation. So what we'd do is build Excel documents and then put data dumps into that generates, the simplistic dashboards that already help you to look at, how you're trending month on month and how the run rate is and where you think you're going to end up in. So we've covered the I, and then the D stands for develop strong teams. So the only way as a CFO you can move is if you have people who can capture the operational side of things. So start delegating some of your tasks to the team and develop the capabilities for them to help you as well to implement the strategic plans you have. G stands for growth, growth using capital allocation. Ensure that you can be able to allocate your resources to where you have high returns and where growth happens, rather than just going and operating the status quo. And then E stands for establishing a forward-thinking vision as well as a finance culture where you have transparency in the organization and you measure performance not by how people feel on that day, but more about like how they're tracking on financial metrics. Make it transparent and make people accountable for their performance. And in this way, you're going to shift more from a mindset of managing the past and actually shaping the future.
Thanks. And I really like what you said. You need to know what kind of CFO you are. So I think self-awareness of where your strengths are and what you gravitate towards within domain of finance is always necessary, but maybe even more so in today's sort of turbulent world. So I wanted to turn to Jen. What strategies do you use, or do you think finance team can use to demonstrate the value that you bring when many companies today need to sort of shift their strategies and have a more value-driven approach, maybe than just thinking top-line growth? What would you say?
So I think we're actually in one of the most complex environments that I've certainly seen in my career right now, where external folks, investors and future investors expect growth. They always want that, but they are now also expecting profitability. So they have the opportunity and position to frankly want it all. And I think finance teams are uniquely positioned to actually help a company evolve in that way, to really bring both sides of the profitability equation to bear. Because at the end of the day, we have the bird's eye view of everything. And most critically, we have to really understand the business to be able to drive those conversations. So that is pretty fundamental in terms of the role that finance has to play. So I can give an example. It's probably every finance team's favorite topic, which is marketing and growth. In the not so distant past, it was unbounded growth, right? It was growth at all costs. You can spend what you want as long as that top line is moving up and to the right aggressively. At Tala, we learned early on we couldn't do that because money is our product. We really do have to preserve cash to be able to grow. It's not just that we can invest in user acquisition. So this was an area that finance dug into. We took the lead on in developing a lifetime value to CAC framework, whereby we turn something that sometimes feels more like an art into more of a science. We really spent a lot of time honing in our forecast on lifetime value so that every marginal acquisition dollar that we spent, we had a certain kind of payback period that we would achieve. And in doing so, we didn't do it in a lab by ourselves. We worked with our partners. We made sure actually to take the opportunity to educate them about every component of revenue and cost so that they have a stronger foundation as they make other decisions. So that framework really helped us manage our top and bottom lines while also, I think, bringing to bear critical information, foundational information about the business that we all can work from.
Oh, I was on silent because I have a dog here. So thank you. Yeah, it's an excellent opportunity to pull out the really go data driven. And so thanks for that. So I want to turn to Jay. So navigating growth in this climate, what can you share maybe some challenge or mistake or something that maybe we don't all share that, but that's how we learn, right? So what learnings can you share on this topic today?
Yeah, I certainly have a number of mistakes that I've made through my career. But the one that I wanted to share with the team, especially in this environment that we're in, where there's so much pressure on managing costs and profitability, also with top line growth, is there's also a balance in terms of building your finance teams and capabilities in terms of being too lean. So as finance, I think we're always understaffed and setting the example of cost consciousness and being mindful of new hires and budget. But it can also be a little too much on that side. And at SunPower, when I was there, we had just gotten out of proving the scalability of our manufacturing from a cost standpoint, and then also the reliability of our solar panels. And we quickly moved to wanting to become a public company and starting our IPO process so that we can raise the capital for additional lines and manufacturing capacity. And so at the time, when the board made the decision to go commence our IPO process, we had 5 people in finance in corporate in the US, and then 4 additional in our Philippines manufacturing plant. We hired a few others through the process, but I also forgot, we had no audited financials. So we had to go back and audit our financials. So we went public with an accounting team of 4, 1 person in FP&A, 1 person in treasury, no general counsel, no stock admin, no IR. And on the personal side, I was leading our IPO process. 1 week before we filed our S1, our twins were born, and we had a 17-month at home. So it was not just for me, but the entire team, an incredibly stressful time. There were a number of challenges and frankly mistakes that we made, partially because of the leanness and staffing. So that's probably the biggest learning for me, which is there's that balance of you never want to be overstaffed as finance, but I think the other side can also be too extreme. And we also we used spreadsheets and we had an ERP system, but at the time there wasn't the same platforms and technologies that there are right now. But that's probably the biggest thing I would do differently.
Yeah, and I can so relate to that. I've been through 2 IPO processes myself, once as a CFO and once as a CEO. And when people come and ask me what advice, if I can only give one advice, I always say staff up, man up early, because that's just what you're in good company, Jay. I think we've all been there. So thank you very much for sharing that. So let's move on to an adjacent sort of area, which is risk. Nobody wants to talk risk, right? People just want to talk about growth and opportunities, and the risk topic often ends up in the CFO corner. What would you say are the biggest risk for when maintaining hypergrowth in today's macro climate? Nelly, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, sure. So, when Jennifer mentioned about this period in time when money was available in troves, I was like, oh, I missed that time because one of the biggest risks today we have is funding risk. That we have to be aware of, especially in hypergrowth and for startups. We say now we're in a funding winter, and it's not easy to get money. And when you get the money, the interest rates are quite high, or the requirements are also quite high. The due diligence is extensive. And so how CFOs could be able to manage this, and how we're doing it right now in Numida is, going into looking at alternative sources of financing, managing our working capital in order to manage our cash reserves. And this is one of my favorite topics as well, because of starting out, moving from operational to being a strategic CFO. This was a very quick win where it was able to change our cash conversion cycle from 20 days to 2 days just by managing this, which reduced the reliance on outside funding and drawing down on debt, reducing our interest rates, increasing our gross profit margin. So it has all this rolling effect. And another way of managing the funding risk is managing the relationship with investors as well, so that you can become top of mind, tell them what you're doing as well in the company, get them excited about what you're excited about. And in very close relation to funding risk, we also have currency risk and interest risk. So in currency risk, you think about it, we are operating majorly in East Africa, but we get most of our money in USD. And the climate has been quite hectic for us, especially in Kenya, where the currency depreciated by about 20 to 30%. And we have all this debt in USD. So, we've input some hedging strategies to protect us from this. It's forced us as well to be able to talk to local banks, even though it takes forever to get money from them, in order to balance between the USD and the local currency debt that we have. And on the other side as well of things is the interest rate risk, which we found it's being able to manage the relationship with stakeholders. They're able to see our business and look at the risk they're taking, which has helped us to negotiate better rates for ourselves, even though the market, has higher rates. And on top of that, leveraging on local debt has also helped us to manage this risk, because we can be able to balance between the rates we're getting from locking up in an investment fund, for instance, and what we're borrowing. And I think one of the big things we also experience as a risk, and indirectly from the businesses, is supply chain disruptions. And I think most of businesses experience this as well, where you just can't get the supplies, and when you get them, they probably won't arrive in your business until later on. And how we've seen businesses that we work with manage this is coming to us to ask for longer term debt. So today we give 1 month loans majorly, but by having very agile kind of business model, we were able to extend some of these credit terms to 60 days and 90 days, which enables the businesses as well to be able to keep borrowing from us, even though they're having supply chain disruptions, and matching between their payable days and when we're giving them the loan and when they have to repay. So yeah, in a nutshell, I think as a hypergrowth company, you have to always prepare for the risks and be able to adapt, when changes happen, and seize opportunities whenever they're there. You have to be really quick in this.
Thanks, Nelly. Yeah, funding is for sure a very big risk for a lot of companies today. So, but I wanted to turn to you, Jennifer, because you have to manage risk, and we're often becomes like the risk police. But how do you balance that role with not becoming like a wet blanket and still encourage and support continued growth? How do you look at that risk reward kind of mathematics in your job?
That's always the hardest thing. I think finance teams are notoriously presumed to be the wet blankets in the room, but truly, if we think about risk, the other side is opportunity, right? If, every risk at the end of the day is a way that we can strengthen our business, potentially evolve our products, serve our customers in a different way. So I think being very holistic about how we look at things, approaching risk not in a way where it's only about dollars and cents, but truly, how does this first and foremost impact the customer? How do we want to react to that? Letting that customer orientation guide the conversation, and then layering in what you need to do for the business itself. So not an easy thing to balance, something I would say that even to this day I struggle with, but it is something to always keep in mind, because helping people understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel is really critical. I think as a finance team, you don't want to be the group that is always talking about all the worst case scenarios, because then it could feel like there is no way out. So ensuring that you're always thinking through truly the risks and the opportunities and balancing that narrative.
Thanks. So if we move to the demands of the finance department, maybe Jay, this is something you can touch on. In the current macro, do you think it changed the demands on the finance department? Do you think it influences how you ideally compose competences and experience in your finance team?
I think it does, Maria, in regards to in one of the things I think about at the start of my career, finance, if finance was ever in the spotlight, it generally wasn't a good thing. It was because a forecast was missed. It was, significant deficiency or worst case restatement. And so finance by our nature was more risk adverse controls, risk management, while still helping to run the business. So in terms of the teams and really recruiting, developing, and growing a finance team, I think some of the core skills that we've always looked for in finance: high integrity, diligent, hardworking, analytical, understanding of financial statements and accounting, depending on the role, are still important. Collaboration, working with teams. But I think increasingly what's important within finance is more some of the softer skills of having a growth mindset, having the curiosity of understanding the business, having both the capabilities, some of the training and of analytics and technology, in addition to the capacity for change and embracing new technologies and new processes. So that's probably the biggest thing in terms of in today's environment that we're facing, the ability to drive efficiencies through automation, as Nelly mentioned earlier on. So those are things, and then also as finance leaders, it's also incumbent on us to make sure that the continued development of both relatively those team members that are early in their career, or as they're advancing, having more of the broader experiences. I think those are all important.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I invented something called the cold chair principle, which applies probably to the entire finance team, but particularly, for example, business controllers or FP&A people. And the cold chair principle is, if I put my hand on their chair, it should be ice cold, because they never sit in it. And what I mean by that is, I think that the role of finance has increased sort of the need for communication skills and interpersonal skills. And, if we're going to manage risk and be while driving growth, but you find the balance we talked about, then I think we need to be out there and really engage with the teams. Thanks. So if we talk a little bit more about the finance team in a hypergrowth environment, Nelly, what would you say then is the true value of finance transformation for a modern CFO in your opinion?
The true value of finance transformation is around, supporting the CFO to be more and more strategic and actually drive and be part of the conversation, being in the room to drive business growth, through leveraging technology to automate, to ensure that we're having accurate data and very timely when we need it. And when I think about this, I think about AI. And now, AI is such a buzzword, but, it's truly remarkable what we could do. And I also believe that it has such profound impact on business that today we can't even imagine to what extent it can have this. I imagine that in this transformative state of AI, we could have, CFOs who are spending hours, reviewing or preparing financial information, all of a sudden being able to wake up in the morning and find real-time data dashboards where they can review what's happening in the business and what's potentially going to happen in the current trend, and draw insights from this. Be able to actually talk to the management team and say, hey, this is where we're going to with how we're performing. Let's change course. And then using predictive AI, we could be able to flag potential issues with the cash flow and bottlenecks that affect us, and quickly allocate resources and change the budgets to suit the current climate. And when I think about this for me today and how I wish I could fast forward to a time when AI is actually really strong, is being able to not have to re-update my financial model, and having to draw data from every single department and waiting for them to, have a bit of time to get this data to me, and being able to provide the right information for the management. And another area I can see this is in scenario planning, using technology as well. What I would give to be able to put the economic and macroeconomic information I have right now from newspaper into something that tells me, okay, with all of this, then this is how your revenue will look like in 6 months. So you need additional source of funding or something like that. So I can see that this is how finance will change. We'll have the teams as well, instead of them focusing too much on just, releasing data or producing data, it will also help finance teams, to upskill very quickly and being able to actually focus on things that matter. One of the challenges, and as Jay was saying, it's about managing costs and having a lean team. And also, sometimes in my career in doing performance reviews, putting the value that my team does, if my team is collecting invoices and posting it in the system, how do you show the impact to the profit of the company? And so I think with AI, this changes, and people can now be able to have tangible results from the work that finance teams are doing. And I'm excited about this time when we can do that.
Yeah, so thank you. So exciting. I agree with you. But do you think there is an AI hype, like that there is a realistic or unrealistic expectation now that we have to become more automated and reduce maybe resources in finance? What do you think, Jen?
So I think that AI is really truly a powerful tool, but we have to remember and actually remind our teams, because it can be a scary thing, especially for finance organizations, where they think, hey, is this about cost reduction? How do you help your teams really understand that AI is an enabler, the way that Nelly described, rather than a goal unto itself? So it's actually a really fun topic we've kicked off in my organization, and we're getting folks to start small. It's like, start by asking questions that you don't want to spend half an hour researching. See what it gives you. See also the dangers of it, because sometimes it's very good at making things up and sounding very real. So really kind of play with the tools, things like ChatGPT or Gemini, to understand the pros and cons of it. And then we're encouraging folks to think about, well, take a look at what you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that you're like, I spend way too much time on this for the impact that it creates. If there is an imbalance, or you're frustrated that you're investing far too much time in seemingly very rote activities, look for a solution, right? So rather than start with the AI products themselves, think about the day-to-day and how we can shift from doing critical but very table stakes works like closing the books. How do we speed that up and actually get to the data, the insights, and the business outcomes? How do we have conversations with our partners? We can't have a cold chair if we're spending all our time doing the very mechanical things. So that's what we're encouraging our teams to do, and then surface them up. Once we have use cases and we see bigger boulders, bigger questions, bigger data sets to work with, then we can actually look for very specific things to solve for those challenges and to really get onto the fun stuff that finance teams can absolutely be at the epicenter of.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So Jay, the fun, you mentioned the fun stuff, Jennifer. Jay, I mean, what how do you think that finance teams can evolve then if they are successful in adopting automation and AI to relieve some of their tasks maybe that they're doing today? How do we adapt to that and make it what would you say to that?
Yeah, and sorry, I couldn't resist. Nelly, I'm going to follow up with you afterwards because there's a solution out there that I think can meet your needs with Pigment. But I'm half joking. But in terms of, I do think technology, and I've been in analytics and business planning solutions, is a core part to up leveling and skilling, changing the role of finance over time, so that the elements that Nelly was talking about when time spent reconciling number, pulling data, running reports, all of that, whether through automation or AI, should be automated over time, so that the less time finance teams are spent on trying to find answers to questions and more times partnering with business, I think that helps to elevate the role of finance overall. There was one CFO at a panel that I heard who had a great quote that I wanted to share, which is that she wanted her finance teams to ask as many questions of the business as were being asked of her team. So really changing the dynamics of finance becomes, instead of reporting the news, helping to create the news and trajectory of the company.
I love that. Turn around and ask as many questions back, and creating the news rather than just reporting them. Let's see if we have any questions now from the audience. We have a question from Jonathan Cottom. From an operational finance perspective, like management reporting, etc., what would you say are the best tool you have all used to improve efficiency? If we start with Jennifer, what do you have an example of a tool that you love? Who has helped you with this?
I promised Jay didn't pay me to say this, but we did implement Pigment this year. And the contrast is this, we have NetSuite for accounting, right? We download all of NetSuite, we shove it into Excel or Google Sheets, we transform it, we push it back out to our partners to react to it, to map out their budget. And now we have everything connected all in one place. We're early innings in terms of using it. This is our first annual planning cycle. We'll be using Pigment, so we're really excited about the capabilities that it delivers. But I think one of the biggest things is that it democratizes things, right? Mm-hmm. You are able to give access to your business partners. You're looking at it real time. If your finance team is making a change, they can see it too. And I think that really helps with the transparency, the communication, and the partnership. So more than anything, it's that, and it's a single source of truth where you're not worried, did I pull the latest financials from NetSuite? Was this from a month ago? You actually control that process very tightly.
Great. So got some free marketing there, Jay. Nelly, how about you?
So yeah, I was about to reach out to Jay and actually say I have used Pigment before and I really liked it in my previous workplace. So
this was not planned, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, and I think what I really liked about it, similar to what Jen was saying, was that it just brings everyone together to look at the different metrics that we have to one place. And there's one particular one that really stood out for me when using Pigment was it also had an HR dashboard, which we hadn't gotten in a previous setting. This really helps, in kind of planning resources and increments and everything, and comparing what the budget and actual was. Another tool for me that really I really liked to use was Power BI. Because of the dashboards, was simple to use, and you could build your own custom reports depending on how the setup was done in beautiful dashboards. Sometimes the numbers are just too much, and you want to see the beautiful colors and quickly look at it and what it says, and that really was nice to use, even for the junior teams in the company.
Great, thanks, Nelly. And Jay, how about you when you can't say your own system?
On operation, it's hard for, maybe we can move on. I was going to say either Pigment or Tableau, because both companies are really around operation management reporting as a core part of the value proposition.
I have great experience of Tableau as well. And also company I worked for, we really made it also a way to interact with our clients, gave them a lot of dashboards. So we were sitting on opposite side of the screens and really drilling down the number. So I have good experience from that. So then we have a question from somebody. Do you have any tips or tricks for moving past the CF no reputation and earning trust and respect and becoming a valuable business partner? We touched on that a little bit before, but do you have any, like, what's your go-to strategy when you're feeling resistance from, for example, the growth team or any team that they really don't want to let you in, sort of? Any popcorn style? Who wants to go?
I can start with that, Maria. And this is to your comment about not being in the empty chair and being really, it's different in the virtual world, but really finding ways to connect with different parts of the business when it's outside of just the pure planning process, or when asks and requests are being made. In some of it, depending on the role and the function, it's if it's FP&A or strategic finance, helping to not only understand their point of view in the metrics and coming up with ways in which, if there's limited budget, to find solutions. So it's, at the end of the day, it still might be a no, but I think the attempt to understand and build that relationship and find solutions will be appreciated.
Yeah, I really like that also, to sort of offer to help solve, if they have a limited budget, you can only have this many new headcounts. Maybe just sit down with and strategize together and be a sounding board in solving the problem, not just saying what the limitations are. Great. We have another question from Jonathan. He says, love that point on understanding LTV to CAC. What are the best ways to distill down what feeds into the CAC as teams get increasingly large and complex? Jen, you were the one who brought that up. Do you want to say something about that? Yeah.
For us, when we look at customer acquisition costs, we really do look at the variable costs associated with that. So performance marketing, sometimes asset creation that's amortized over time. We don't include team costs. On the LTV side, though, obviously it's revenue minus all variable costs to service. We don't count marketing in that, so that we're not double counting when we look at that issue.
Yeah, great. So in my experience, I've seen that. I've also been at companies where we actually had two metrics. So we talked about LTV to CAC, but also we've talked about fully loaded CAC. So we, at the end of the day, could see we had different sort of requirements and boundaries what those metrics needed to be. But I think sometimes it also helps to look at, are we also covering all of that other good stuff with our lifetime value? Great. Anybody else who have a different input to that question on how you think around CAC and what goes in and what doesn't? Jay, Nelly? No? Well, I think there are no more questions at this time. So last chance to ask a question from this super interesting panel, I think. It's last. We're the last session of the day. So maybe I will offer you a few minutes back of your day. And I want to thank everybody for participating. It was lovely to have you all. There will be more summit sessions coming up other days, so please stay tuned. I also wanted to remind you that all sessions are recorded and that you will receive an email at the end of the summit conference with a full list, so you can go back and replay if there was anything you missed, or the dog started to bark or whatever. But thank you, Jan, Nelly, Jay. It was great to talk to you, and it was great to be here. And thanks. Hope you have a great evening, y'all.
Thanks,
Bye.
Maria, and thanks, guys, for attending. Bye.
Thank